Let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. Since the passing and transitioning of Brother Panic, it has brought out a lot of the kooks and weirdos and people, having so much to say about other people's spiritual, path. And I wanted to give some commentary on some things that I did not want to intertwine with the video that I did about Brother Panic's passing earlier today. First off, I want to reiterate something. We're all going to die one day. These bodies are not going to last forever. These avatars are not made to last forever. That is just a fact. Now, do people want to die? Tough shit, no. But it's just something, it's a natural process of life. And I really think that part of the lesson of the human experience is, the dealing with somewhat of the unknown and dealing with not knowing. I think that that is part of the lesson of the human experience. So when you have people who try to weaponize that lesson and try to use it to instill fear in people, to go back to religion, because occultism and spirituality and metaphysics did not work for them, then that is a serious problem. Especially if this said person is of a non-melanated nature. You feel what I'm saying? Because that has been one of their greatest tools to tell Black people, don't use this, don't do that, don't mess with this, don't mess with that. But then they'll be behind the scenes doing everything that they're telling us to be afraid of. I remember one time I had this woman, white woman, tried to tell me about the Baphomet. And I was like, bitch, you can't tell me shit about the Baphomet. I am the motherfucking Baphomet. You can't tell me shit about the Baphomet. That is who I am, in a sense. And a lot of people don't understand the metaphysics and the occultism and the symbolism of the Baphomet. The Baphomet is not evil and it's not the devil. It's about androgyny and it's about divine feminine energy when you really understand it. So let me take myself out of the equation. Excuse me, women. It's really about you and the power that you have within you, but they don't want you to know that. You feel what I'm saying? Because when you look at the Baphomet has breast. Now, some people say that it's the perfected man. And maybe it is the perfected man when he intertwines with his divine feminine side. It doesn't mean the man becomes, effeminate. It just means he becomes enlightened. That's all that means. But you have people who were once occultists, practicing occultists, giving readings, and doing all of these other things. And for some reason or another, which is their own right, they've decided to denounce occultism and spirituality. And that's their right. And they go back to the church. And that's their right. And even Bobby Hemmett used to say, if this work leads me back to Jesus, then it leads me back to Jesus. But the problem with a lot of these people, then they want to denounce people who are still on this path. And that is where the problem comes in. Let me tell you something. The reason that you see a lot of these videos of people who say, "Oh, I was an ex-witch." No, you weren't. You were never a witch. A real witch would never denounce her craft and her power to go to religion. A real witch. Now, there are Christian witches, I get that, but they're in their own category. But a real witch, whatever category she may be in as a witch, would never denounce her title out of fear and ignorance and miseducation. The people who run back to the church, they were not real witches from the get-go. They were not real occultists from the get-go. It was not mounted in their DNA. See, this is mounted in my DNA. This is why it works for me. These other people, what ends up happening is a few things end up happening. Let me explain and break it down, and this video won't be long. A few things end up happening with a lot of these people who denounce, magic and metaphysics, and they say it's demonic and it's of the devil. Okay, yeah, it is demonic and of the devil to you because you're not supposed to be in it. So anything that you don't understand or anything that does not vibe with you, of course it's going to be evil to you, especially if it turned against you. And here is why. Some of these people were doing some really effed up stuff. They were using this science to unjustly harm people. And they didn't know what they were doing. There has to be a justifiable cause for why you do everything. And your heart was not pure. So when your heart is not pure in these works and sciences, when it's not pure in nature, then that leaves the door open for negativity to come in and to affect you and to attack you. A lot of these people were threatening people's children. One person I'm thinking about, she was threatening to do harm to a mother and her child. Some of these people like to steal money from people. They lie to people. So then what ends up happening is those spirits that they're using, or those entities that they're using, they say, okay, we're going to teach this person a lesson. And I'm just being layman when I say this. We're going to teach this person a lesson. We're going to fuck them up. They begin having mental problems. They can't eat. They can't drink anything. They can't sleep at night. They're tormented. And then they go back to the church and they think that going back to the church, they're under the deluded, what do they call it? A false doctrine of protection, that the church can protect them. But let me tell you, once you open up that door, the church cannot close it for you unless it's somebody who is trained and specialized within the church to close those doors for you. And most of you dumb motherfuckers, you don't have access to people like that. Excuse my language. So if you want to go back to the church after denouncing, other spiritual systems or denouncing occultism, you have every right to do that. You have every right to go back to the church because that maybe it's not right for you. Some people are made to be lambs. I'm sorry, some people are made to be sheeps and some people are made to be goats. I am the goat. I'm made to be a goat. I'm not made to be a sheep. I have watched in my family what believing in Christian ideologies have done to them. They are miserable. They are sick. They are broken. I'm not. I'm not. We all have human problems. You cannot escape human problems. And here's the thing. A lot of you, the problems that you have, when you get into metaphysics, it exacerbates them because you get into it with a religious mindset. And I'm not saying anything that no one already doesn't know. You get into it with a religious mindset, and then what ends up happening is your own mind starts to turn against you, and then you run back to Christianity and you run back to the church, which is your right. But what you don't have a right to do is try to drag down other people's spiritual journey and to try to interfere with other people's spiritual journey. That is going to get you fucked up even more. So you need to keep your motherfucking comments to yourself. And you need to keep your fucking opinions to yourself when it comes to other people's spiritual journey. Because that is what gets you fucked up. That is what gets you fucked up. You need to mind, it's called minding the whole fuck. your business. Minding your business. Minding the business that pays you. If occultism does not work for you, then you should not be in it. And a lot of you who went back to the church, you should not have been an occultist or a spiritualist anyway, because you are sheep. And that's okay. Little Bo Peep, she lost her sheep and she looked everywhere to find him, honey. So if she wants to know where her sheep is at, he's at the church, getting ready to be slaughtered. Okay? And then they don't even understand the real concept of Christianity and the real concept of how our ancestors used it to overcome. It was never supposed to be a crutch. It was never supposed to be something that you use to attack other people. That was used to overcome. And a lot of the Christian figures and a lot of the Catholic figures, they are actually, what do you call it? They are not Orishas. Are they Orishas? They were black gods and deities that were masked with white saint faces or turned into white saints so they could continue practicing their practices. See, a lot of people don't understand that. Before they start talking and running their mouth, they don't do any research. And I know what they say, well, that's the devil's lie and all that. The devil is not even a physical person. It's a concept and an ideology, and it's a metaphysical principle to understanding certain parts of metaphysics, which are within you. For example, the devil can be considered the root chakra because that's why it's red. Didn't Brother Panic teach that a long time ago? And that makes perfect sense. Same thing with Christ energy. And then to talk about Jesus, the name wasn't even Jesus. From what I understand, it was Yeshua. Nobody's denying anything, but there's a whole expansive philosophy and ideology that people ignore because of their ignorance and their fear. Let me tell you what hell really is. Spirit revealed this to me. Hell is lack of knowledge. Hell is lack of wisdom and not knowing. And I've seen a lot of my relatives live in pain, torment, and hell. And they can't understand why I am so happy. It's not about me hating Christians or Christianity. That's beneath me. Everyone has their own path to enlightenment and God. Everyone. And no one has the right to tell you, well, if you don't follow this path of enlightenment, you're going to go to hell. You need to change your ways and give your life back to Jesus. Cheryl, I done been saved, baptized, christened. I done been all that motherfucking shit. And let me tell you, ain't none of that motherfucking shit did a motherfucking thing for me. Ain't none of that shit did a motherfucking thing for me. But it does do something. Maybe, it may offer some cloaks of protection for some things. I don't know. But it ain't never done a motherfucking thing for me. I've been christened. I have godparents. And when you really think about the christening process and within the Methodist Church, because I was brought up in the Methodist Church, when you really think about the christening process, that's really similar to the IFA process of getting godparents and stuff. So a lot of this stuff is intertwined even on a subliminal or subconscious level. And people don't pay attention. Stuff be right in front of our faces and we don't pay attention. So if you want to go back to the church, then you just go back to the church, because you were never meant to be an occultist anyway. You were meant to be a follower, and that's okay. But there are some of us who were meant to be masters. Some of us were meant to be masters. And that is why I had a lot of respect for what Panic talked about. Because he wasn't trying to create followers, he was trying to create masters. No matter what you've thought about him on a personal level, You can't take that away from him. So I just wanted to come through and say that go back to the church. Go back to being a sheep. This work is not for you, especially if you're a non-melanated person. This work is not for you. Of course it's evil. Of course it's dark. And that also intertwines with racism and why they really hate us and why they really hate black people, because they look at black people as being demons and demonic anyway. So when we couple that with our magic and what we practice, this is what they do. Even when you look at old movies, like slave movies, they'll talk about, oh yeah, that's nothing but African ritualism, African voodoo, African ritualism, nothing but evil. That is what they do. That is how they look at us. But then they want to get involved in it and then tell you that what you're doing is evil and you need to go back to what your ancestors practiced. Now, how about this? Why don't you go back to what your ancestors practiced, which is being in caves and smearing yourself with boo boo and poo poo? Why don't you go back and do that? I'm just saying, mind your fucking business. You'll live a lot longer. People that mind their business, they live a long time. Christianity is not for everybody. There are spiritual systems that outdate Christianity, so people are supposed to ignore that simply because you a scary ass bitch and you ran out of occultism because you were doing foul shit and those spirits turned against you and they are still tormenting you. The spirit of confusion, havoc, and fear torments a lot of these people. So mind your fucking business and stay out of grown folks' business. Stay out of the master's business. And you continue being the slave that you were made to be. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm going to put this on my backup channel so it won't get flagged. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.